Hello, and welcome back to another episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School. I'm your host, Bryan Austin of law firm Alchemy and Red Kraken Creative, filling in for Charley Mann. Charley is getting ready for our upcoming Genesis Mastermind in Boston, and so he left the keys of the kingdom in the hands of law firm Alchemy's favorite fun uncle. But I wanted to take an opportunity to talk to you all about something that's been really exciting over the past month. About a month ago, Charley and I released our book, They Don't Teach This in Law School: Tools, Strategies, and Principles for High-Performing Lawyers and Law Firm Owners. Now, you can find the link to this book in our show notes. And if it's your first time listening to the show, welcome. Please hit that like and subscribe button, leave a review, help us get into the ears of as many law firm owners as possible. I thought it would be fun to take an episode to talk a little bit, not only about our book, but the process writing it. So without further ado, we're going to dive right into it. Okay, let me set the scene. A theater kid and a future marketing entrepreneur walk into a high school. That sounds like the start of a joke. I assure you, it's real life. I'm the theater kid. Charley is the future entrepreneur. We were really, really close friends in high school. We did Shakespeare, we did theater competitions, we stayed late, rehearsed, geeked out over lines most people didn't understand. We dreamed about our futures, and both of us have had pretty cool futures. Charley went on to become the respected voice in legal marketing that he is, and I went on to become, well, not that. I took a completely different route, and I became an artist. I became a writer, a performer, a director. I spent over a decade in museums and theaters telling stories that connected everyone, from Supreme Court justices to students in Title I schools and every audience imaginable in between. Now, about a year ago, I crossed over. Charley brought me into his world, and together over a few months, we co-authored They Don't Teach This in Law School. I should clarify, it took us 2.5 months to get just a first draft. What followed was about a year of revising, of writing, of sending it to contributors, getting their thoughts. It truly was a collaborative grassroots process that's culminated into the book that you can get your hands on today. And I came in with zero marketing experience, none, not even a MailChimp login. But over a period of a few months, I found myself thinking like a marketer, writing like a marketer, and realizing that this work, this mindset of thinking like a marketer, is transformational. If you're a law firm owner who thinks, I'm not a marketer, I'm going to leave that to someone else, I'm here to tell you I wasn't either. And if I can do it and I can become one, you can too. So today's episode is called From Zero to Marketing in 2.5 months, which is about the period that it took to write They Don't Teach This in Law School. I'm going to share the key takeaways and strategies that I came to really understand in my time writing the book, strategies that you can apply very, very quickly in how you operate your life and your law firm. And I promise you, if you think about them a little more critically in the course of your day-to-day work, it's going to reshape how you show up, how you communicate, and above all, how you scale your law firm. As I was writing the book, the first thing that really hit me is that to make something sell, it has to be relatable. Now, when I talk about relatability, I'm not talking about the nice, like, oh, yeah, I understand that. That's really pleasant. I mean, in a relatability that can convert. True relatability, it builds fast credentials, it gets clicks, it gets replies. Relatability closes. Coming from theater and museum work, I've always known that stories can bridge the gap between information and transformation. But writing this book and focusing on specifics in relatability showed me that emotional connection, the same emotional connection that can make somebody cry in a play, is the same thing that makes a prospective client say, I want to work with you. One of the most surprising things we found as we shaped the book was that the polished law firm owners, the ones who seemed to have it all figured out, they weren't always the most compelling in their copy and their language. But you know what was incredibly compelling? The ones who focused on relatability, the ones who were brave enough to talk about their failures, the ones who were transparent in sharing their mistakes, their flaws, the ones who said, this is where I struggled, here's how and where I almost gave up. and here's what I did next. There's oftentimes in the legal industry this fallacy that logic, reason, knowledge, whatever you want to call it, that's going to be what makes people sell. They come from a logical place. But in truth, in sales and marketing, it's almost antithetical. It's almost the opposite. People move from an emotional place first. They act emotionally and then justify it after the fact with logic and reason. Now, I'm not sitting and saying we have to have a pathos-driven approach to our copy, that we need to move from emotion. But this is where that relatability part comes in. If you can incorporate some of that emotional relatability, that vulnerability into your marketing, you can approach from a place where your client suddenly feels seen and knows that you're there to help. You can get a lot of mileage out of that. One of the books that I've added to my library since coming into this work is Will Guidara's Unreasonable Hospitality. He's the co-founder of 11 Madison Park. And he said, hospitality is about making people feel seen, not just served, seen. In marketing, as you're relaying the stories that are going to make people connect with your business and your product, there's a lot of mileage that can come from seeking to connect rather than just seeking to impress. That connection is what sells. The second lesson I learned is one that a lot of times, even today, makes me want to throw my computer against a wall. Less is more. Again, I'm gonna say it again. Less is more. As a writer, I tend to overdo it with words. I love language. I love finding as many ways to express my thoughts with as many words as possible. And just to share some vulnerability to make my story relatable. Again, key point one. I often feel like I have to justify my expertise. I fall into the same trap that I shared at sort of takeaway one. I have to prove I'm smart. I have to prove I know what I'm talking about. I have to say it as many ways as possible. So the big challenge I've come to as a marketer is figuring out how to say less. The book was the first kind of part of that. And now I'm sitting and trying to figure out how to take my subject lines or my titles for episodes and in as few words as possible sell people on why this is something worth listening to. It was the case when we were writing They Don't Teach This in Law School. I'd write a great paragraph and then I'd spend twice as long trying to cut it in half. Not because it was bad, but because it was bloated. In everything you can do, whether you're writing copy, whether you're on stage, clarity is the most important element. If you can't explain something in one sentence, people aren't going to get it in 5. So as I've come to develop my copywriting, as I've come to develop writing with a specific end of making someone click on a link, buy a product, buy a book, which, by the way, you should buy this book. I've developed a checklist that's really helped me in my copywriting as a marketer. It's 3 things, 3 simple takeaways that are going to make your copy much more effective and transform the way you use language to bring people in. The first one is, does this sentence have one job? Is what you're trying to say aimed at a specific purpose? Is every phrase that you are putting together purpose and objective driven to get someone to do something? The second thing is, can I say it faster? Is there an easier way to say this complex thing? And the third one, would a 7th grader get it? I work with a lot of lawyers who they want their copy to sound like journalism. They want their message to have a certain degree of sophistication. But there's also a second level in the midst of that, which is you can say the most beautiful thing in the world. You can give the most helpful hint. You can lean on the most profound expertise. And will it really make a difference if no one gets it? It gets back to that same idea of connectivity. And more than that, it makes your language that much punchier, that much dynamic. It speaks again to that heart and makes connection. Rather than talking about the compelling standards that your law firm has, instead simply say, we help people just like you. Sometimes simple is best. Sometimes less is more. And that simplicity, it scales. Complexity oftentimes can make things complicated. It can clutter your thinking. And when you have 5 seconds or 15 seconds to hook someone in, it's oftentimes better to go with the simplest option. There's a section in the book, I think it's the chapter with Jan Roos, that talks about Mr. Beast. There's a reason why Mr. Beast has the massive following that he does. He gets straight to the heart of something. We're filling 30 people in a bus and they're going to stay there for 6 months. You know exactly what he's doing. It also puts a bit of the onus onto the receiver of that information to take whatever meaning they want out of it. And when they provide that meaning, suddenly they're going to connect to it far more. It makes me think a little bit of reading plays. I don't know if any of you have ever sat and read a play from beginning to end, but oftentimes it can feel like sort of an incomplete thing, right? You're reading half of the story because the other half is the performance, the direction, everything else in between. So in your marketing, you have this opportunity to provide half the story and allow the viewer, the audience, the consumer to pick up the rest with meaning that they provide. That's going to help you quite a bit when it comes to creating connection with your audiences. The third and final takeaway is probably the most important lesson, and that's consistency builds credibility. It's showing up. It's providing a regular standard of quality. In theater, they talk about practice makes permanent. We all know the phrase, practice makes perfect. But in theater, something that got expanded on with that idea is that perfect practice makes perfect. What practice does is it makes things permanent. You rehearse not because it changes, but because you change. You get sharper, you get cleaner, you get more confident. Marketing oftentimes can feel like bottled lightning as you're trying to find different ways to connect with people. But the true mastery of good marketing is learning how in systems to bottle lightning, to consistently deliver something that is effective. And so one of the most fundamental ways you can be effective is just by showing up and getting the specific information and metrics that can show you how to show up better. Consistency builds trust with your audience, momentum in your marketing, confidence in yourself, because every time you do something, you develop the practice of communicating. You practice perfection perfectly. That reinforces those skills in yourself. So much of the reason why I picked up so much of this marketing stuff was because truly I had no choice. I was consistently doing the work, and eventually it comes through by osmosis, so long as you're applying the techniques properly. Charley taught me that marketing isn't about having 100 tactics. It's about choosing a few, then executing them consistently. It's about choosing a few and executing them consistently. Circling back to Unreasonable Hospitality, the author of that book said excellence is doing ordinary things extraordinarily every single time. And when you look to the digital marketplace, when you look to the larger and wider legal industry, there is a lot of inconsistency. There's inconsistency in communication. There's inconsistency in brand. You have so many people who are throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. So good marketing oftentimes is putting your nose to the grindstone and saying, this is what we're about. This is what we're going to do every time. These are the objectives we're aiming for, and holding those objectives to every choice you make and making sure they're informed by those objectives. Consistency isn't just a habit, it's a signal. It tells your audience, I'm dependable, I follow through, you can rely on what I have to say. It's a call, and it's more persuasive than any funnel trick or subject line. So that's a little insight into what I picked up helping Charley with They Don't Teach This in law school. If you haven't picked up the book, I really hope you do. It would mean a lot to Charley and I, and it's a great companion to this show. And here's the thing, They Don't Teach This in Law School isn't just a book. It's a shift. It's a shift in how you think, how you lead, how you hire, how you market, and above all, how you grow. Inside, you'll find strategies, you'll find frameworks, and most importantly, you'll find stories probably just like yours to help you not just in your marketing, but to become the leader who attracts success, because we want that for you. We want your success. So wherever you are in your journey, whether you're stuck at 6 figures or scaling to 8, this book will meet you where you are and show you what's next. It's available on Amazon. We really hope you get your copy, get one for a friend, and start thinking. Start moving like a marketer. You don't need to perfect. You just need to be in motion. That's all for today's episode. We'll see you on the next episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School.